Good evening, good morning, and good day. A very good warm welcome to you all to this episode in a series of webinars from Global E-commerce Experts. My name is Riki Hooker, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all today to a very exciting launch of our new 7-step expansion journey process. Now, as many of you will know, Global E-commerce Experts has helped to expand hundreds and hundreds of clients around the world in their e-commerce journey to selling online in the UK and in the EU. And we've used a tried and tested system, a process, which we have been spending a lot of time over the last few months updating post-Brexit, and to coincide a whole pile of additional compliance and shipping-based requirements that are much more up to date with the needs of today's e-commerce shippers. So post this bit of work, we're really excited to launch this to you. So brief introduction. Today we are joined by the guru of e-commerce, our own CEO, Andy Hooper. So welcome, Andy. Thank you very much for being here.
No problem. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to gate crash Riki's webinar series. So thank you very much to Riki for having me. It's great to be online and do another webinar with some of our esteemed clients and potential clients, and be able to have the opportunity to speak to people and talk people through this. So I think it's amazing that we've been able to pull this together over all these years and put some final tweaks to it to actually really give sellers the opportunity to expand successfully.
I can see a number of attendees dropping in now. Thank you to so many of you that almost religiously attend week after week to the webinars. I do hope that you find them practical and useful in your e-commerce expansion journey. So thank you to you all. And if anyone listening afterwards, we very much appreciate you taking the time to listen to the content of these sessions. We're going to run through this new look pathway, which we're really excited about. It includes a number of new services which Global E-commerce Experts has provided for some time that really kind of round off the potential for growing your business in another country, and takes away a number of the key barriers that a lot of sellers will find when they're online. What that means is, what that ends up with is breaking down the steps to success and giving you more capacity to be able to grow your sales online. We'll talk a little bit about the current e-commerce landscape, and at the end of that, we'll talk through some questions and answers if we have time. So here it is. The fanfare completes. You'll notice, for those eagle-eyed watchers who come to a lot of our webinars, you'll notice that the expansion pathway has added in terms of the amount of content and the number of different options that are available to you. In essence, start at the beginning. There is no end. The end is when you want to exit your business, but you will notice that, of course, the exit itself is on there right at the end, and we'll talk about that slightly a bit at the end. Most importantly, what we've added in now is a significant more amount of product compliance. This has come post-Brexit, where the law has changed, the landscape's caught up. You'll no doubt have done some research into the different types of compliance that are required for your products, both in terms of importation, moving your goods into the EU or into the UK from outside, and the products themselves in terms of the responsible person and one-stop shop type regulations with your tax compliance. So we're going to go into those in a little bit more detail, but a few moments there for you to absorb the expansion pathway as it is. Andy, typically, where do you think GE customers kind of arrive with Global E-commerce Experts? So we don't normally see people right at the beginning, but what's a typical journey for a GE client?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that everyone comes to this journey for GE at different stages. The majority of people get to us before they've expanded, and it's for people that are, when someone says to me, hey, I want to expand to Europe, but it's too complicated and I just can't deal with it. I just go, well, we've got an expansion pathway. Yes, there were 6 steps before. There's now 7, but that is to really fine tune the process. And actually, if we look at this sort of process, if you like, it's to give people the real clear guidance of what they need to be doing step by step. And the majority of people will come to us, either right at the beginning, or they'll come to us just for VAT or just for warehousing, typically in those areas, or product compliance, label compliance, whatever it is, they'll come to for one specific piece. And it's not until they get under the hood and start talking to us, they realize that actually you can make my life very, very easy. When I think about us as a business, we're really here as your guide. This here is an expansion part. It's a guide. What we're saying is that in order for you to successfully expand, if you start here and follow the process, you will successfully expand into Europe. And what you're going to be able to do is use us for the bits you want to. Obviously, we'd love to support you for all of it. Now, there's some things in there we don't do. So, there's things where you might need guidance and support where we're just at the end of a telephone call, or you've got other things where you might choose another provider for some things. Obviously, we wouldn't like that, but we understand that happens. And that's not, that's all part of it. So, in order to answer your question, I know I've rabbited on a bit there, Ricky. Really, there's 2 sides. People either come to us right at the beginning, or they're coming dotted in somewhere along that. But really, our strength comes in knowing the European market and being able to advise you all the way through, which we don't actually charge any extra for. We don't have an advice charging service right now because we can do all of those bits. So we can advise you on the phone and then we guide you through those different things. So hopefully that answers that, Ricky.
Yeah, and I think in essence what you're saying there, Alan, is it doesn't really matter where you come into this. It doesn't matter where you are on the journey. That any successful e-commerce entrepreneur that's been building their business in their home country will likely have done a whole pile of these things in their home nation. And essentially what we're offering here is handling that remotely for a seller internationally. But I think moving on slightly from the kind of the location where people come in, what this expansion pathway offers now is the blueprint to EU and UK e-commerce success. If you're able to activate most or all of the different sections of this pathway, you're going to grow your business and you're going to have some success online one way or another.
Totally.
So let's deep dive. Well, not actually, I don't think we've got the opportunity to deep dive, but let's dive, because I think each one of these different sections could probably warrant a webinar or a talk in of itself. Let's start right at the beginning. Let's begin with the market research section, because of course, although you might have a successful product in your home country or in multiple countries, you need to start by understanding what's this product going to do inside the UK and the EU. So, and talk to us a little bit about what a feasibility study looks like.
Yeah, I think that, when anyone's expanding to a new market, there's a million and one things that you need to consider. And I think for most sellers, they need to do a little bit of research about the market they're going into. And I think the market research is a bit that we always talked about before, but wasn't actually one of the steps. And I've got to be honest that's over the sort of the years that we've sort of gone through this, actually has become more and more relevant because there's more competition. Of course there is. There's more sellers in every market, but it's understanding, when we look at all the sellers that we work with, why are some sellers succeeding and some aren't? Why are some sellers really pushing forwards and others are struggling? What is it that they're doing? And that's where the pathway come in to understand all of those things. But probably the first thing that we do is look at the feasibility study. What is it you are trying to sell? Who is the target market? And will that product fundamentally sell in Europe? And what we can then do is then see, actually, there might be some different markets that are better for some products than others. Germany, France, Spain might be better than, the UK and Sweden for some products, and the Netherlands. There might be products that are more suited to one location or another. It might actually feasibility study have a look at and say, well, actually, the best marketplace for your product would be this one and this one, because whilst our go-to typically is Amazon, because the majority of the sellers we work with are already selling on Amazon, actually some products might not be suited to that in the UK. It might be, or Europe. It might be better on Etsy or Wayfair or Frugo or Bowl or Otto, whatever they might be. And we've done webinars on all of those. So it's not that we need to do this. You as a business need to do this, because you need to understand what the market is. What's the size of that market that you're trying to get to? And I think that's really, really important to understand that. Therefore, is my product going to sell when it gets there? And if it is going to get there, which marketplaces are they best suited to? And what might my initial strategy look like to make that happen? And I think that's the first piece, is that feasibility study. I think that's really, really important. And I think the second part of market research is the sourcing of products. And I'm not going to dwell too much on that, because lots of sellers we work with already have completely nailed down their product sourcing. But it's well worth considering right now that with the state of shipping prices, shipping products from out of Europe in, there might be some better ways of sourcing products more locally in Europe to sell to Europe. Now, we're going to touch on that on some webinars coming up in the future. But, it's well worth considering, where are you sourcing the products for? How much extra product you need? How much product do you need? What are the top sellers already selling? So there's a load of things to consider in there that you need to consider right at the outset. And, we haven't started talking about budgets, the amount of stock, advertising spend. We haven't talked about a business plan in here, because what we're presuming here, rightly or wrongly, is that you're already a seller that's already selling in other markets, and therefore your stock. You know how much it's going to cost. You know what your profit margins are and everything else that goes with that. So this isn't a business plan. This is making sure your product's going to sell. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I literally, Andy, just before this webinar, I got off the call from an exciting new client for GE, who is a US-based seller of a particular type of toy, and they are having their goods manufactured in Switzerland, actually. So actually not inside the EU, little country, not inside the EU, but in Europe, that is then to supply the European sales. Done exactly that in terms of the feasibility study, and then moving on to the product sourcing. Really smart move there.
I think actually in that, what that'll also identify at that point is, we're going to come on to label and product compliance at some point as well. But within that feasibility study, there is some guidance that could be shared on what the compliance of products. It's not a compliance review, but it does give you'll need a CE mark, or you'll need to be a food business operator, or you need to have an authorized representative, or all of these different names that I'm throwing at you. We're going to come on to in a minute. It will give you some guide in that at that stage.
As part of the feasibility study, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good time then to move on then to that compliance piece, because compliance covers a whole myriad of different elements of your tax compliance and your individual product compliance, as well as your ability to trade, import, and protect the trademark or your intellectual property within the EU and the UK. So the compliance piece is a really important part of getting started. So let's touch on those four pieces if we can, Andy.
Yeah, so I think that when people expand, we used to have this thing where it's, I've got to be VAT registered and then I'll be fine. Well, actually, I sort of think there's 3 or 4 steps to the compliance piece, and this is absolutely critical. You need to make sure your product is compliant for the market. You need to make sure your business is compliant for the market. And those 2 things really are absolutely critical, whether you're expanding into the UK, Europe, Australia, Canada, or anywhere else. In fact, while we're on that, this expansion pathway could be used in other markets without any shadow of a doubt. What we just don't have is all the experience and expertise in all those other markets yet. So let's just touch on the product compliance piece, because depending on your product is going to depend on what you need to do to be compliant. So whether you sell a food supplement, or whether you sell a toy, as Ricky's just mentioned there, whether you sell an electrical device, a medical product, a medical device, whether you sell a go-kart or there's so many different options. Is it a baby product? I mean, like, we could go on and on and on with all the different types of compliance. And what you need to do is you need to make sure that your product's compliant before you expand. Because what I can guarantee is that if you're selling your product in another area, let's say the States, because the States is probably one of the biggest markets that we talk to, we work with, and so on. If your product is compliant in the States, that is not an automatic guarantee that it's going to be compliant when it comes to Europe. In fact, I can almost guarantee that you'll need to make some changes at the very least to the product labeling in order to expand with that product. There will be testing possibly needed. So there's a whole load of different things you need to consider in there to make sure your product's compliant. Now, part of that product compliance piece is labeling. You need to make sure your label's compliant, but also that the product's been tested according to the regulations under some regulations. Post-Brexit, there's things that have been changing. CE marking, you probably would have heard of. It's the stamp for electrical and toy products here in Europe that you get a stamp for. Well, since Brexit, you now need a UK CA mark and a CE mark. So there's a whole load of changes post-Brexit that you need to be aware of. Now, fortunately, we're experts in this. We've been working for many, many years on this, and we understand the market. We particularly understand e-commerce sellers. So that's all pretty easy for us. Off the back of that product compliance pieces, I'm just going to jump the VAT piece and go to the responsible person service. So many, many products and many, many different regulations require some form of responsible person. Now, the responsible person is a standard term we use as a voice out to say to most sellers that your products probably need a responsible person. What it means is you need someone in the country, whether it be the UK or Europe, who has an example of the product and a certificate that can show that product to the market surveillance regulations. All right. Now, dependent on the different regulations your product falls under, will depend on mainly what that's actually called. So, responsible person is for CE or UK CA mark products. But if you've got a supplement, it's a food business operator. It could be an economic operator. It could be an authorized representative. And there's a whole load of these. Essentially, what they want or need is someone responsible for the product in region. And depending on the product, let's take medical products. Your medical product needs an authorized representative. Now, depending on that product, depends on who can be responsible for it. Because if it's a defibrillator for a heart, well, that's probably something we can't do. And we need specialists enabled to work with specialists to make sure that product's compliant. If it's a knee brace, well, that's very different. But they're still medical devices, unfortunately. So you see the range of things that you need to be guided on. So that's the responsible person and the product compliance. Them two sort of come hand in hand in many, many ways. The third part there is making sure your business is compliant. So in Europe, that's making sure you've got VAT, you're VAT registered where you want to sell the goods. Now, since we've moved over from Brexit, we've got one-stop shop and we've got import one-stop shop, and there's lots of different options. The main thing to think about is you need to be VAT registered where you fulfill your products from, rule number one. Secondly, there are some rules around that on distance selling thresholds, UK, Brexit, and moving stock around. But what you really need to be focused on and laser focused on is that you need to be registered for VAT in certain countries where you're fulfilling your products from in order to make your business compliant. All right. There are decent ways around doing that. There's some great savings depending on the product, depending on the platforms and marketplaces you're using. So there's a whole load of things around that. And then the last thing on that is trademarks. And whilst this isn't technically compliance, it sort of is. We see the people that are winning on marketplaces, let's take Amazon right now, are people that have got brands. They are people that have got their brand registered. They are trademarked in Europe and the UK, and therefore they can get A+ content, enhanced content, EBC, all of those sort of things. They're being able to get onto their Amazon profile. So whilst it's not compliant, we feel this is an absolute critical step right now for brand owners to be getting trademarked, getting their brand registered so they can actively sell their brand online. That has massive additions and massive benefits when you come to sell further down the line, but really it makes your sales much, much higher here in Europe and the UK as well. There we go, Ricky. That was a very quick whistle-stop tour. What have I missed out that you think I should add in there?
Well, I don't think you've missed anything out. I just think that it makes the process of getting set up look quite a daunting task. I think it's worth noting that actually these are certainly the top three: the compliance, product compliance, the VAT, and responsible person. They're very procedural activities that you need to run through, that have a fixed upfront cost and generally then an annual ongoing compliance cost, which is not extortionate by any stretch of the imagination, and then allows you to be compliant. It's also worth noting that the key e-commerce platforms are becoming very, very stringent in making sure that sellers are compliant to be selling online, both in their products, their tax, and their responsible person service. So there's not really an option of getting around these things one way or another. That those e-commerce platforms, Amazon in particular, are going to catch up with you if you don't do those things. So getting set up to do things right from the beginning is vitally important. It doesn't need to be daunting. We put quite a lot of time into the compliance, but of course, that's the legal bit. That's the most important part, or one of the most important parts they can't really get away from. So I'm pleased that we put some time into that one. But let's move on then to the next point, the exciting part, the kind of meat and veg of your expansion into the EU and UK, Let's go for the marketplace launch. There's a few bits and pieces you're going to need to do to begin with. First and foremost, of course, you're going to have to get your goods into the country. You've got to collect money from people, you've got to get launched on a platform, and then once you've decided which one, you've got to start listing. So let's delve a little bit deeper into those now. Shipping and customs, of course, is a really important start. Let's start with that piece separately, Andy.
Yeah, I think there's, you're going to need to ship your products. We all know that. I mentioned a moment ago, the cost of shipping. So you need to factor in a time frame to be able to do that. Air shipping from China, the majority of our sellers that we work with are shipping from Asia. Okay, so air shipments from Asia are expensive right now. There's not as many planes going backwards and forwards. If there's not as many planes going backwards and forwards, that puts the price up because it's more competitive to get on the plane. The second part of that is shipping. Shipping takes longer. There is a rail option, that's similar in cost, slightly more expensive than shipping, but slightly quicker. There's some ways around those things. But, really, there's two sides. One, you need to find a shipping broker that can do the shipping for you, right? The second thing is you need a broker to do the customs side of things to make sure that you can get into the places you need to get into. And I think that what happens is that sellers from a shipping and customs point of view, you end up working with so many different people, it becomes really, really difficult. So, we've been able to bring some of that stuff in-house to make that seamless for people. So, when a client says to us, well, we're shipping via FedEx from China via air shipment, that fills me with dread. And the reason for that is that FedEx doesn't do something called indirect representation. So indirect representation is basically someone who can act on your behalf, getting goods into the country, all right, in a nutshell. And in order to do that, you need to be working with the right partners. So we get it, and we can support you with that. So I think shipping customs is a vital part. Getting payments, I don't know about you, but we're all in business to help and support the people that are using our products, right? So if someone buys something of yours on Amazon, whether it be a knee brace, let's take the knee brace, you want to support as many people with that knee brace as possible because the benefit of having that knee brace. So in order to support more buyers, you need to get paid. Well, payments is absolutely critical. So you need to have a bank account essentially in euros and pounds. Well, you're not going to get here to set up a bank, right? So there are ways around this. So you can set up what we call online payment gateways. There's a number of different ones that we work with. that over a period of time, you can work with some that are better than others, some are more effective than others, some have got different tricks on their online software, all of those sort of things. But in essence, you need a payment gateway, a little bit like PayPal. Everyone understands PayPal, but from a business point of view, we can support that and look after that. But once you've done those things, like that sort of setup, if you like, I think the most important thing here is where are you going to be selling your product? Where is the most or biggest bang for buck? Now, a lot of sellers who are already selling on Amazon, it just makes a lot of sense. You can take your Amazon store, you can put it up into the UK and Europe, and you can start selling across a whole load of different countries. The advantage is it's in all the different countries. And the advantage of it being in all those countries is that it's simple and managed from one place. It just makes your life easy. But it might not be that that's the best marketplace for your product. We quite often talk about eBay. eBay here in the UK has probably lost some sort of traction, all because of Amazon. Now, actually, eBay can come into its own, especially for things like returns, which we'll come on to later. Do you want to use OnBuy, Etsy, Otto, Bowl, Real? I could go on and on and on with all these different platforms, but you've got to choose somewhere to sell, okay? And if you're already selling on Amazon in the States, you can bring your products here, you can get them into Amazon, you can use FBA potentially if that's the right model for you, and we'll come on to 3PL stuff in a moment. It's all about choosing what's right for you and ease of use. Long-term strategy is always to be on a lot more than just one platform here in Europe. But to start with, do the easy option, make things simple and easy. Once you've set up that platform, and let's take Amazon as a prime example, you then need to get that set up. So you need to get the listings right. You need to get translations. Now, translations, Amazon's amazing. You can get your product in 8 marketplaces. Well, the downside to that is you need 8 different languages. So you need to translate your products. Now, I've typically got a 3-step approach to translations. And the first one is to do it for free via Google Translate. It's not perfect. It's not great, but it will do it. Amazon will do some of that for you as well to take that ease away. So it's not that hard to do, all right? Obviously, the keywords and stuff in the background aren't going to be done by Amazon, front of end. You need to make sure you're doing all of those. So getting those listings and translations is absolutely critical, and making sure that the numbers, the costings are right in all of those different countries. Otherwise, you might find you're selling products at the wrong price. And it's really, really critical to get that. Things like photos. The photos appeal to the right market. If you're selling a product in Sweden and the US and Australia, you might want a very different picture on there to what you've currently got. And I think we could talk about for hours on all of these subjects. So I'm just going to try and cap it a few minutes for each one to give you a flavor rather than everything you're going to need, because we could go on about this for days and days and days. What do you think, Ricky? Does that summarize that well?
Yeah, I think that's that helps, and I think it's interesting your point there about being on more than one platform, and yet undisputably being in the right place to begin with, to not make your journey any harder than it needs to be. But as you progress into the infinite e-commerce market of the UK and the EU, you'll want to, of course, be maximizing your opportunities. So I can hear, I can't hear, but of course I know what you're now saying. Well, this is no good. I've set myself up online and I've done my feasibility study. I'm all compliant. Where the heck am I going to put my stuff? Well, the good news is, and we've talked about this a lot on webinars before, the good news is what you'll need is a third-party logistics provider. That's the most important thing in terms of the physicality of your stock, because you need someone to look after it, you need someone to store it, you need someone to send it out when it needs doing, and you certainly need someone to look after it if anyone decides they want to send it back. So those let's whiz through the different aspects of 3PL.
Nice. So what I want to say right here first off is that if you are just starting your journey, there's a number of different things you want to consider here, because Amazon FBA is a great route. And when you pay, people pay attention. So whilst Amazon's never said having your stock in FBA helps increase ranking, there's definitely some mileage in having some products in there. Now, we all know worldwide right now, the problem with that is that we can't get our products into Amazon because it's chock-a-block. So there's two sides to this. One is you might need to bring stock into countries and then ship into Amazon, because you might decide that you need to send a container into a country of stock, but actually you can only send a third of that into Amazon. So you're going to need some form of buffer and everything else. So look, we've put a few things down here. I think that the key thing to say is that, you're going to need buffer stock. You're going to need seller fulfilled prime setup. Now, what I say by seller fulfilled prime setup is that in the UK and in the Netherlands, and different countries, is if you've got seller fulfilled prime set up for just one SKU, if for whatever reason you can't get stock into Amazon, you can turn seller fulfilled prime on for everything. We saw this particularly during COVID, where some of our clients could pivot, bring their stock into our warehouse and fulfill prime from here. Was an absolute winner. So that was absolutely key. But look, let's just touch on a few of those. So first thing, you're going to need storage. You're going to need some buffer stock potentially. So you're going to need to find somewhere to make that happen. Fulfillment. You're going to need to be able to fulfill either for eBay or other marketplaces or from your website. If you're choosing to sell via your own website, Shopify or one of those other platforms, you're going to be able to do that, right? So you're going to need somewhere to fulfill those products. Seller Fulfill Prime comes in perfectly here. I do personally recommend when you first launch, send as much as you can into Amazon, but keep one product out to get seller fulfill prime. That's my personal preference. As you grow, you're probably going to want to pull some of that out because you'll realize that Amazon just can't deal with it in the way you need it to. Returns. Like, you're going to get returns. If you're in FBA, the returns will go to FBA. But what'll happen is it'll become unfillable inventory. So you're going to need to bring that back to somewhere to do something with it, whether that's to repackage it or resell it or do any work on it. Is going to depend on what you need to do. So you're going to need someone to get returns to. Once you've got it there, you're going to need to rework it. Let's take a great example. You get some unfillable inventory in Amazon. You've got, 1,000 of these water bottles, and people have returned them because there's a faulty lid on them. Right. Well, what you might be able to do is you'll be able to send them into Amazon and you'll be able to get them to be removed from Amazon to our warehouse. And what we'll be able to do is just put a new lid on them. We'll put a new lid on them, new package, send them back to FBA, and off they go. You might decide that actually the lid is absolutely fine for eBay. So actually, instead of doing that, what you might decide is to list them on eBay and we'll fulfill them for you. Like, there's so many options in the warehouse that we could spend another day on this. But I think the really key thing to say is that the warehouse is there to support your growth and your expansion. It's there to fulfill buffer stock. It's there to support you and help you. And it works really, really well as you're scaling. If you're coming across with 100 units, send it to FBA. If you're coming across with containers, you need a 3PL. It's without any shadow of a doubt, you're going to need that buffer stock, especially with the current IPI scores. And as we move into FBA into Q4, that's going to become absolutely crystal clear that if you're not on that for Q4, you're going to miss out. So it's really, really key that you focus on that. So there's a few of the areas that you're going to need that support. And again, Ricky, we could talk about hours for this, couldn't we? All the different ways in which our clients have used us in the past. That gives you a flavor. Anything you're currently doing from your home, your garage, your 3PL in the States, we can do. Like, it's straightforward.
I think it's important also to note that the fulfillment side goes hand in hand with the shipping, because very often when you're selling in e-commerce in the EU and UK, you're crossing borders, specifically in and out of the UK or in and out of the EU, or both. Yep. So the shipping, customs, fulfillment piece goes hand in hand, and that's with returns. Cross-border returns can be a pain. You need someone you need a 3PL that can handle that specifically. And fulfillment cross-border, knowing the nuances of how things should things go on Amazon's inbounding program, should they go on a courier program? What's the fastest way to get your listings logged and up and running? So I think a dedicated e-commerce based 3PL is crucial to your growth, because that knowledge of 3PL and what those platforms require will save you time, save delays, and get your goods up in front of clients quicker and more efficiently.
Nice. As you was talking there, Ricky, sorry everyone, I just came up with an idea, so I was just writing my idea down before I forget. You gave me a great idea there. You'll thank me later.
Will do. So therein is a 3PL. So your goods are now compliant. You're in the country. You've launched. You're listed on Amazon. You're translated. Now, what do we need to do? We need to promote the heck out of your products and get them sold. So the promotion side of things becomes a kind of post-launch activity. We're dealing with PPC. We're dealing with vouchers and deals and social media and health checks. So let's whistle through those, Andy.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Ricky. The number one route to success of your product in the UK and Europe is sales velocity. No different to in the States. So sales velocity, getting your product on the market for sale and getting sales quickly is the most important thing that you need for your listing. That's it. So there's a whole load of different things that we can do for that. Is there some pay-per-click stuff? Is there vouchers? Is there deals? Is there a way of doing promotions? What can you do during Black Friday, Cyber Monday? What about Prime Day? There's all of these different options to us. I have known sellers that have actually planned their launch around some of these days. And the reason for that is that they can actually get some much better sales velocity. Now, it depends on your account whether you can do that or not. Not everyone can do some of those things, but it's really, really key. And the last thing that we see there where sellers are really winning right now is by bringing social traffic onto Amazon. Where you are bringing people onto your listing from external channels and they're buying your products helps ranking, because Amazon sees that as a bonus and an absolute key to building your brand. So whatever it's going to take sales velocity. Sales velocity is the most important part, building the velocity to get stuff. And there's loads of different ways to do that. And we could talk about all of those. But the key thing to say is if you're not getting sales velocity and you're unsure about those, there's some key things that we can actually do to support and help you. Now, obviously, everything we're talking about, the expansion journey, most of these things we can support and help you with. All right. There's a couple of things that we can't do in-house, but we can support you with a local provider or a partner. But one of the things that I'm definitely going to pitch here is account health checks. And the reason for that is that if you are at this stage and you're not selling and you can't work out why, what we've put in here is what we call account health checks. So what we are happy to do is to take your account and look at it. It needs at least 3 months sales data to understand what's going on, ideally. And then what we can do is we can look at your account and do an account health check about what you're doing, what you're selling, what you need support with, and how we can help you to sell more. Now, what that'll do is that'll give you a 2 to 4 page report, depending on your account, and will give you a whole load of things you can go away and do in order to increase your sales. So if you're interested in that, then get in contact with that. That's the only thing I'm really going to pitch on here, that this is absolutely critical. So if you get to this stage and you're not selling, well, you should be, okay? Obviously once you've done some of these things. And I think it's really, really important, if you're not, you do an account health check, because we can really, really help and support that and guide you where you need. Ricky, I'm not going to go into much more than that, because I think that we could, again, we've talked about spending a lot of time on these things, but I think a lot of people get the fact that sales velocity is absolutely key and they need to do some of these things.
Yeah, I think that's fine, Andy. And actually, I think we've created quite a lot of content for specifically these things. So if you search our YouTube channel through the other content that we've created, you'll find much deeper dives into actually each one of these facets of what we're talking about today. So if you're hungry for a bit more intel on that front, then go and search that out on our YouTube channel, because we've got lots more there to go.
Nice.
So moving on past the platform sales, now we're going to start talking about moving beyond and maybe a little bit of your own direct sales. Now, I'm smiling as I'm saying this because I've been looking through the attendees as Andy's been talking here, and I've noticed that some of our friends on Amazon's global selling team, and a big shout out to you guys. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the webinar. Some of the team from Amazon.com are listening. So. Of course, website traffic is always important beyond your platform sales. So we would give us a moment, if you would, to talk about customers and sellers selling themselves. So let's talk a bit about selling yourself off your own store and the aspects of that.
Yeah, I think that, any expansion into a new market takes a whole load of different routes. Everyone's, we've got sellers that work with us that are specifically on Amazon. We've got some that are specifically on Shopify or their own website or their own platform of some way or another. We've got some that are on every platform. Actually, when you start looking to how do we actively, successfully expand into Europe, you've got to think about all the different layers that are available to you. And, whilst I 100% agree that if you're an Amazon seller in the States, expanding and launching on Amazon in the UK is the easiest route without any shadow of a doubt. But actually, as you grow and build that brand, what you want to be able to do is you want to take and get some sales off your own website and create your own traffic and create your own demand for those products for a whole load of different reasons. Some of that is to create your own list. If you want to launch, you've launched this product, you've sold all these products, and actually you now want to sell, I don't know, a light up lid. I mean, I'm making this up clearly, right? So you can now create a light up lid that you want to put on that. Well, if you're on your own website, you can email everyone that's bought this product and say, hey, check out my new light up lid. And they'll be like, oh, I love that. Sign me up. That's just what I need when I'm in the dark with my water bottle. Like, why wouldn't you? Anyway, so there's things like that, by creating your own list is really, really valuable. The downside is you've got to create your own list. If you're selling on Amazon, Amazon's got the people, whereas on your own website, you haven't got the people, but you haven't got the competition. There's a whole balancing game with all of those things. And when you start building these things out, you've got to take into mind, how much work that's going to be. The people we're seeing that are succeeding with their own brands right now are ones that have multi-channel options. They start on Amazon, they build that out, they grow that. Then in order to build the brand, they sell on other channels as well. They sell on their own website. And what that does is that creates a much bigger brand. And what happens is what we see is that the sales on all of those platforms increase because the brand has got more, more, help me out here, Ricky, has got more, it's just bigger. It's a bigger brand, right? I was trying to think of a clever word and I couldn't think of a clever word. Anyway, so it's a bigger brand, and because it's a bigger brand, more people know about it. And if more people know about it, people want to buy on the platforms that are relevant to them. Now, what we actually see from a website point of view is people actually create their own website, and then what people do is they then go and buy the product on Amazon because they know Amazon, they get Amazon, they know if there's an issue, they're going to get their money back. If they buy on your website, they don't know your brand, they don't know you, therefore they don't know they're going to get their money back if there's a problem with the product. So actually it adds, that just grows in all areas. But there's three things to consider. One, you've got to build the store, right? So you've got to build that website. If you've already got that in let's say the States, actually it's really, really easy to add to that and switch that depending on what platform you're on. You've got to build a list. You've got to create a database. So you've got to have lead magnets. You've got to start thinking differently about growing an e-commerce brand. Growing e-commerce on Amazon is one way. Growing e-commerce on your own website takes very different skills. You need to know about Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. You need to know about lead magnets. You need to know about funnels. There's lots of other things you need to know about doing that. And I think that's really, really key. So list building is one. And then we put in here what we call the Dream 100. There's some great articles that I've got this mainly from something called ClickFunnels or Russell Brunson and the GOAT. There's a whole load of different people that talk about this. But really, the Dream 100 is about who's the most 100 influential people that can get you to your market. So, for example, let's take these water bottles, for example, right? If you were to...
Are they light up ones?
Yeah, definitely the light up ones.
They're the light up ones.
Definitely the light up ones. If you wanted to sell these water bottles and you wanted to sell them to your target market and your target market was fitness people, well, you're probably not going to sell that. What I mean is you're going to find someone who's a fitness influencer who could be drinking their water bottle and use it like an influencer. It's not 100 people who are going to buy your product. It's 100 people who can influence people to buy your product. So you're talking about 100 hundreds. So instead of getting 100 people, you want one person that can get you to 100 people. So 100 hundreds, yeah, we've got 10,000 people all of a sudden. Yeah, that's what we're trying to get to rather than, 100 people. That's the power of the Dream 100. And it's about making relationships with people to support your brand and grow it externally. And actually, even the Dream 100 is a critical part on a marketplace, because we talked about social traffic being critical to help increase your ranking on Amazon. Well, actually, if you had 100 influencers on your YouTube channel, your wherever, you can buy this exclusively on Amazon type approach. That's all going to help with your thing. So actually, the Dream 100 is a relevant target to do going forwards anyway, but absolutely critical at this stage.
Yeah, I think we're touching there on a number of different ways of building your own online presence, where of course you've got your own data to be able to do with what you wish, and then some of the activity that you might go into when it comes to the Dream 100 that could help progress that. But the background to this element of the expansion pathway is taking on the project of selling your own stuff off your own site rather than going through a platform, and all of the additional benefits that come with search engine optimization over optimizing on Amazon, the presence that might come from people searching online off platform and what have you from that side. Totally. So really what we're doing there is just touching on the website. And a few weeks ago we did a really good well, I thought it was very good, I was on it, but there was a really good sort of content that was regarding different types of selling software that you could use to build your website. That went into a lot more detail about how you would go about and the benefits, the pros and cons, as it were, of selling yourself off your website.
That was really good. What was the name of that product, Ricky?
It was Dr. Tech, TECH, and see if that one's on our YouTube channel as well. It's well worth watching that if you're interested in selling yourself. That was a really neat bit as a Shopify alternative, and was a really neat bit of neat way of getting to market very quickly and simply, almost alongside your platform sales, kind of complementary to that. So that was a really, so there's lots of different ways of going about doing that. Let's move on to keep the momentum. We're sort of 15 minutes in, but we're a long way through the journey now. Let's talk a bit more about where you go from, and as an experienced seller who's established in the UK and the EU with existing sales, say on Amazon. We've talked a little bit about the website. We've talked about selling on a platform. Let's use Amazon as the example, but it could be a number of different ones depending on which country you are selling in. Let's then talk about the growth, and then ultimately how you get out. You're not at home. You're in a foreign place. What's the end goal? So let's explore a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've talked a few about different marketplaces and all the rest of it. I think once you've consolidated, I'm a believer on you sort of focus on that one area as you start building, and once you've got that foundation in place, once you've got the stability, then you can start expanding. So that growth piece is, well, how do we add additional marketplaces? What do we need to do to bolster our sales in Italy or Spain or Sweden or Poland or wherever that might be? Because there's 27 countries in Europe. Amazon is only in marketplaces in 8 of those. So what other options are there in some of those other countries? Now, the amount of people that buy from some of those other countries on Amazon is huge. So it's not like they're not buying on those platforms, but it's about how do you add weight to that? Because Amazon isn't the biggest marketplace in some of those countries. Now, obviously, its aim is to be the biggest marketplace in those places. But until it is, actually having additional sales in some of those other locations is absolutely critical. But you can only do that if you've got a warehouse in those locations as well. And that's where the 3PL piece comes in really, really key. I think another thing to consider is how do you get your products into brick and mortar stores? Now, whilst we know that everyone's shifting online, there are many people that want to get their products into the hands of people in a shop, because actually it completely adds to the brand. When I rock up to the shop and I'm going to choose my flashing light lid here, is that when I can see this in a shop, I know that it's a decent product. It adds weight to the product. When you can then say, well, you can buy it on Amazon as well, they're like, wicked. I can get it the next day. I don't have to go to the shop, but I know it's sold in that shop, but I can go there to get it. Much, much easier. So it adds weight and brand. Again, we're talking about the brand. It really, really helps to build that brand. And the last thing is, if you've already expanded to Europe, you've done all these things successfully. When you start looking at exiting your business at some point, it's adding weight to that. Now, when you exit, you typically want to leave something on the table that people can grow, because if you've done everything, there'll be nothing for them to grow. Right. So you have to be slightly careful of that. But really, the thing is that when you're coming to this, is what's your exit strategy to it? Now, there's 1,000,001 people that are all trying to be aggregators, sell businesses, build businesses, and all the rest of it off the back of this. So I'm not going to spend any time on that, other than, you need to consider what that looks like. But having a European operation means that you're more attractive because it's less process for them. If you've already got sales in Europe and you've already got the compliance piece sorted, that's one less headache for the aggregators to deal with. They know they can start selling it and get it moving in Europe further. And if it's typically a stock issue, well, they've got the cash to put into more stock to get it out and get it going further. So really the thing is, how do you grow that in Europe? Well, yes, we can grow the platforms. We need to grow the multitude of platforms. We need to grow the multitude of streams, but you're only going to be able to do that if you've already done the other pieces you've already done. And I think that's really, really key, is that, if you don't have a 3PL, you can't go on other platforms. If you've not done the compliance piece properly, well, you're not going to be able to go into retail. If your labeling isn't done correctly, you can't go into retail. If someone comes to buy you and they realize that you don't have a responsible person or an authorized representative or a food business operator, that's going to hold down your sale of your business. So all of the things we've already mentioned are the things that help you to successfully expand. And if you get to this stage and you're doing all of these things, you will have successfully expanded into Europe. And I think we can move on from there. But I think that's really, really key.
Yeah, I think that does the kind of summarizes the end point, doesn't it? You've got a start, a middle, and an end, if you so wish. And then the length of that period and the size of that expansion is, of course, entirely up to each and every seller.
What I want to say is, on that expansion journey, you've got all of these pieces here. You can go away and do all of this yourself and find all the different pieces you need. Now, for every single one of these little boxes, you're going to have to go and find a different supplier to do all of it. And I don't know about you, but when you're expanding to a new market, we've just launched a warehouse in the Netherlands and Germany and all these different things that we're doing. Launching in another country, launching in Europe, setting up a warehouse, bear in mind, we already do that, was really, really difficult. Everything we needed by setting up bank accounts, setting up businesses, all of these things make it really, really difficult. And when you're selling online, we want to make that as simple and as easy as we possibly can for sellers. And our ultimate goal is to be able to provide all of this under one roof, so you've got one point of contact. Because the harder this, it can seem really, really difficult, right, to do all of these different things. And what you need is a partner that can guide you and tell you when you need to do that. Because, if I say you've got to do all of that tomorrow, it's going to cost thousands, right? But if I talk you through to do it when you need to do it and how to do it, actually you need one contact in one place that can guide you step by step. And our success managers are in place to guide you and have got the training and the expertise to go, well, talk me through where you are in your expansion. Let's go for that. You're already doing this. You've already launched. Okay, you're not selling as much. Well, let's do an account health check. Okay, we're doing an account health check. Here's the things you need to be doing in order to sell. The account health check's free. It doesn't even cost you anything. So we're happy to do those things because our goal is to successfully expand e-commerce sellers into Europe. Obviously, we'd love you to use some of our services because we think we're the best at doing all of these things. But the reality is, you might have people you're already using. You might have people you already trust to do some things. There's no problem with that. You take all of these different things. You might have a 3PL that you're already using in the States and they've got a facility in the UK. Well, that's fine. Use them. It's not you have to use us. It's here's here's what you need to be thinking about, and here's what you need to do. But as long as you follow this, you're going to successfully expand. Obviously, we want to do it for you, but you see where I'm going. Go on, Ricky, you were going to come back to this as well, so go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of wrap up really with, a final look at what a successful expansion is. In essence, just to reiterate what I said, if you do these things, if you cover off, put a tick in each of these boxes, you're going to expand your business, assuming that your feasibility study has ascertained that your products are ready for the market and at the right price point. Because otherwise, of course, you're not going to get any further than the yellow section on the left hand side. You're not going to progress across the map because you're selling alpine equipment to countries which have got deserts. I really wanted to bring in your knee brace and your light up water bottle analogy there, Andy, but I just couldn't find anything to slide in. But
yeah, sorry.
But I guess the point is, this is a proven, well-trodden pathway. We're doing Global E-commerce Experts is doing this for clients every single day. At some point on the map, we're providing services that are one or t'other of the boxes on this pathway. So we know that this works. And secondly, it's replicatable. New products, new markets, new platforms, new countries. Once you start here in the UK, you can move on to another country. Once you start, once you've expanded in Germany, you can move on to France. Once you expand through the EU, you could move into Japan or Australia, or you could replicate this pathway, give or take, with VAT and other some compliance nuances. You could do the same thing in Canada if you haven't already, and of course, we'd always recommend that you expand. If you're a US Amazon seller, we'd always recommend that you expand to Canada first before you do the UK and the EU, there, because they're your close siblings. So but nonetheless, I just wanted to kind of finish and wash up. We've gone into quite a lot of detail of what those look like. We've got a lot more content if you're hungry for more. And is there anything else we want to put in right at the end here?
Yeah, I think that when you are expanding to new markets, you really need to think about all these different steps. And whilst it can seem it's quite confusing, we're here to make that easy for you. Like, that is the key part of what we've done. We started off, we didn't start off with all of these different services. What happened was sellers would come to us and say, hey, we're having this problem with this, and we can't find someone that can do it, who understands e-commerce. And we're like, okay, well, let's go away and find out about that, and then we'll come back to you. And as time's gone on, we've realized, as you're expanding, you need all these different things. You don't need them all today. So while it seems daunting, we can guide you through that. And that's the key thing I want us to sort of hit home is we're here to help guide you through all those bits, not sell you a whole load of stuff you don't need. Because if we're selling you stuff you don't need, you can't put your money into your products, which means you can't expand. So, it's all very well us saying, oh, you're going to need all this, right? And I'm going to charge you, I don't know, tens of thousands of pounds, right? And it doesn't cost tens of thousands of pounds to expand, by the way. But let me say, we do that, and you're like, right, okay, this is what I need to do. The problem with that is you then got no money for your product. And the key thing we talked about was sales velocity. And if you want sales velocity, you've got to sell the products. But then you need the cash flow to buy new products. So our key is to successfully expand you. And it's absolutely critical to us that we help you to do that successfully. And the only way we can do that is by telling you what you need when you need it, not everything. Now, at the beginning, you're going to need all these different things. Of course you are. But you don't need them all at once. And our ultimate goal is to successfully expand you into Europe. And that's what we're passionate about doing, because there's nothing better. We've just launched a new brand, and they sell like these sunshades. Now, there's loads of sunshades out there, but this product is unique. It's epic, and I love it. And when I was talking to the client, I'm like, I need that in my life. Like, why do I not have this? And the reason we're passionate about it is because I know that there's a whole load of other people that feel excited about that product just like I do, because it solves a genuine problem. We want your epic product to be available for people in this country and Europe to be able to buy that product that's going to solve their problems. We know that your product solves a problem. We want to help you to do that and get that to the right people. And we want to make sure that you do that successfully and don't waste your time and your money with hundreds of different suppliers. They're absolute waste of time. Anyway, that's probably enough. Should we do some questions, Ricky? Sorry, I probably went on a bit longer than I should have done. I don't know.
Andy, I was going to suggest that on that basis, we'd respond to the questions directly afterwards, because we're just over an hour here. So I was going to wrap up if you don't mind.
No, happy days.
I want to say thank you to everyone for listening through for the hour today. Thank you to Andy. It's a bit of a treat having Andy on the webinar series. It is a treat, Andy. Genuinely, it's a treat. Dragging you away from your internationally acclaimed podcasts, of course, which you can subscribe to. I'm sure if you search up you can find Andy's podcast series as well, which are always insightful. If you are watching this and you're new to market as an e-commerce seller, then please do get in touch. We can help you at any stage in the journey.
Totally.
If you are a long way into your e-commerce journey and you've got some problems or some challenges that you are finding you're scratching your head over, then please do get in touch. If you are an aggregator and you have acquired businesses and you want some help to further lever those moving forwards, please do get in touch. And anywhere in between. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your entrepreneurship. Please stay in touch with our social media channels, and otherwise we'll catch up with you in our next webinar.
Well done, Ricky. Great host. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for being with us. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks. Bye.